top stories from ABC News. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Bronwyn Bishop, remains under pressure over her travel expenses. Mrs Bishop has reportedly cancelled a trip to New York because of the scandal. The opposition and independent Andrew Wilkie have again asked federal police to investigate after it was revealed she chartered a $6,000 flight from Sydney to Nowra. The Greens say Australia should walk away from negotiations over a Pacific Free Trade Agreement. Delegates from 12 nations have failed to reach a final agreement on Trans-Pacific Partnership after talks in Hawaii this week. Greens spokesman Peter Wish-Wilson says the negotiations appear to be intractable. And Sydney Swans coach John Longmire says there's no pressure on Adam Goodes to return to the AFL anytime soon. Goodes is on indefinite leave over continued booing from opposition supporters. There's been widespread support for Goodes across Australia's sporting arenas this weekend, including from his teammates. Stay tuned now for Insiders with Barrie Cassidy.
Morning, welcome to Insiders. Well, what are the consequences when it's revealed that Bronwyn Bishop, already on political probation, took a private plane at taxpayers' expense to another party fundraiser? Will that be the indulgence that finally forces the hand of the Prime Minister? We'll know soon enough, but in the meantime, the issue continues to damage a government already trailing in the polls.
It has taken one expensive chopper ride, 3 suspicious weddings, weeks of ridicule.
It's the political spending spree that just won't go away.
This one is in a category all on its own. The nation's been transfixed.
Tradition demands that a new speaker be dragged reluctantly to the chair. But once there, it's hard to get them out.
I don't think the penalty of losing the speakership would match the crime.
Put simply, Mr Abbott has to act. Bronwyn Bishop has to go. The soap opera of Bronwyn Bishop and Tony Abbott just has to stop.
Alas, some colleagues seem to be making light of the Speaker's now notorious helicopter flight from Melbourne to Geelong.
I make it a practice wherever I am always to get public transport if I can.
Very grassroots, picking up the minister from the South Geelong platform.
I'm a notorious public transport file. Yeah.
No helicopter inside.
There was no aerial component whatsoever. I've got my own chopper. Very good.
I don't think anyone has confidence in Mrs Bishop as Speaker anymore.
Liberal MPs themselves are refusing to say that they support Bronwyn Bishop as the Speaker. Public perception and public views, you know, they're always very, very important.
I'm sure Speaker Bishop will take that into account as she considers her position.
If she is considering her position, she'll make a decision which is in the best interest of the Liberal Party and the government and the Parliament.
I'm not one to offer public lectures to my colleagues on these things.
I have nothing further to add. I have every confidence in Bronwyn Bishop.
Where on earth is Tony Abbott?
The Choppergate saga may have made Mr Abbott a bit shy about doing public appearances.
A contrite Bronwyn Bishop has crashed back down to earth.
The helicopter was just ridiculous. And I am so sorry that I didn't apologise earlier.
Mrs Bishop is apologising to save her job.
This is a genuine apology.
An apology that's got out with a crowbar is not taken seriously.
I'm truly sorry for that.
Nobody's buying what she's selling.
Bronwyn Bishop is not a fit person to continue as the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
I won't resign from the position.
I never believe that you should disappear at the first whiff of grape shot in politics.
The controversy sucked all the oxygen from Tony Abbott again today.
It beggars belief that Mr Abbott and Miss Bishop are going to allow this mess to drag on for another 10 days.
God bless Australia and Bronwyn Bishop.
And Clive Farmer, one of 2 crossbenchers threatening to lead off a vote of no confidence in the Speaker when Parliament resumes, is our studio guest this morning. But first, we'll take a look at the politics in the Sunday papers with the panel Malcolm Farr, Karen Middleton and Phil Curry. It's 17 days now since the story of the chopper ride first broke, and still its front pages It's covering the front pages around the country, and Tony Abbott is still very much in the frame as well, Karen.
Indeed, yes. In fact, the News Limited papers are particularly spectacular. The ouch factor is fairly high across the front pages of the News Limited papers this morning, most of them with headlines, "Driving Miss Bronny," and the picture, the mock-up picture, is a picture of Bronwyn Bishop in the back of a limousine with pearls and hat, like she's off to the races, and the chauffeur is Tony Abbott. So that is very directly connecting the Prime Minister to the current situation with Ms Bishop.
And of course the story suggests Cabinet Ministers are urging him to let her go because they can't get anything done in the meantime. And of course it's a constant free kick for the opposition. We'll start off here with Tony Burke.
But the person who all of this comes back to, all roads on Bronwyn Bishop lead back to Tony Abbott. Bronwyn Bishop's lost all credibility on this a long time ago. The only reason she's still there is because Tony Abbott continues to give her advantage, to give her privilege, to do her favours.
When Parliament comes back in, she doesn't have the support.
It's over, Christopher.
It's got to be over.
It's over.
Move on. The Prime Minister and I are 100% behind Bronwyn Bishop.
You're in your first term and you've just stopped governing the country. It is in your interest.
You had 6 years of not governing the country.
For this to move on.
And Phil, while she's there, the media keeps digging and fresh stories emerge every day.
That's right, and we read today in the News Limited Sundays that her penchant for limousines, 260,000 over the last 5 years. Choosing not to use the taxpayer-funded com cars. She's taking limos and so forth because they can get her through bus lanes quicker and stuff. That's about 50 grand a year, $1,000 a week on cars.
Well, there was one case where it's $1,000 a day.
Yeah, I'm averaging it out. So, look, this stuff just becomes poison now because it just pours into the whole thing, whether it's legitimate or not, or it's just going to keep going and going. It's fast-reaching breaking point, I would suggest.
And yet, have a listen to what Barnaby Joyce has just had to say on Sky.
In this game, as you would know, you start throwing rocks and there won't be a person left in the Parliament because everybody will have some issue somewhere in the past that is difficult to explain.
Now, what an indictment that you can't put the spotlight. The politicians don't want to put a spotlight on themselves because they're all crooks. They'll all be gone.
Well, that's right. It's been billed this week as it's not what's right or wrong. It's what you can get away with, and that seems to be what is implied by that comment.
And it touches on the broader issue that to a degree Bronwyn Bishop is a surrogate for the feelings many voters have for all politicians. They think they're all in for themselves. Now, what's interesting in the coverage of Mrs Bishop is the fact that there's a major news story on a trip she's not taking.
Yeah, Bronwyn doesn't go somewhere.
Exactly. She's not going to New York for a meeting of parliamentary officers, speakers similar to hers, and she's not making a side trip to Canada under the same on the same visit. She's staying at home, and one wonders how who her travel advice came from. Presumably, the Prime Minister's office might have had a say in this, but she's a woman of incredible resilience. Where most people would be hiding under the doona, Bronwyn Bishop is still out and about. She's a social fixture in Sydney. She went to an event where some people might have thought that the reunion of James Packer and Jodie Mears would have been the highlight, but a lot of the attention was focused on Mrs Bishop. It was a fundraiser for Deborah Lee Furness's Adopt Change, a very worthy cause. And the report in the Daily Telegraph Social says that Mrs Bishop didn't follow the red carpet route. Uncharacteristically, she shunned the photographers throwing the red carpet, instead sneaking into the event through a side door. Tonight is about Deborah Lee and the amazing work she has done with Adopt Change. Tonight is all about her, said Mrs Bishop, moving on quickly.
Right, we'll come back to this issue, obviously, but for now we'll leave this issue with this comment from another bishop.
Well, it can be difficult if your surname is Bishop, yes.
Okay, next our studio guest from the United Party joins us. Here's Andrew Wilkie, the independent, who will join him to introduce the no confidence motion against the Speaker.
The bottom line here is if any member of Parliament or any senator if he or she takes a trip at taxpayers' expense that is principally for private purposes, but then signs a form to say it was for an official purpose, then that is fraud. That's not a misunderstanding of the rules. That's not pointing to a need to tighten the rules. That is fraud. And that is a matter for the Australian Federal Police to look into, not the Department of Finance.
Clive Palmer, welcome.
Welcome, Barry. Well, I should welcome you too. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Do you think, though, that finally the Prime Minister might be on the verge of persuading Bronwyn Bishop to go?
Well, the whole thing's, as Billy Joel said a long time ago, it's a matter of trust. And the real issue here is that Bronwyn Bishop has lost the trust of the Australian people. If she can't run her entitlements, and how can Abbott run the country?
Today, Goodes and Goodes. Is it racist? My guest, top Aboriginal blogger, Dallas Scott. Speaker Bronwyn Bishop says sorry. Too late. Bronwyn, goodbye. Goodbye. Investigation blocked. Now Russia shirt fronts Australia. And debate ABC style, where everyone agrees with everyone else. I'm Andrew Bolts, and this is the Bolt Report. Race should never divide us. Martin Luther King said it best 51 years ago.
I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
There is no other safe future for a country like ours, of people of so many ethnicities, no other future than to treat each other as individuals, fellow citizens, race irrelevant. But what do we see instead? A disastrous reconciliation movement that insists on racial identity,